All right, and welcome back to the Fadecast card again. Really thought the momentum of Saturday would move into this week, but I've been getting kind of destroyed. 3-5, UConn, one of the worst first halves I've ever seen from them. I really thought they'd be coming in motivated, but they put up less than 30 points against a pretty mediocre defense that is Villanova. They end up winning this game by 7. Massive rally in the final 10 minutes. There was a chance that Villanova fouled at the end, but of course they didn't, which would have given us a chance if they made both free throws to cover the -8.5. But the only thing worse than getting hooked or backdoored is when the team that you're betting on comes back just enough, with just little enough time to not cover the game. They were clearly the better team in the last 5 minutes. They had all the momentum. The crowd was going crazy, but just too late and pathetic. Texas A&M. That game was back and forth all game. Texas A&M would take a lead. I really thought this was going to look good, but they ended up being down by like 15 with like a few minutes left. They just imploded in the second half of the game. Mississippi State wasn't missing. Shitty game. Ohio, this game kind of pissed me off. Central Michigan, one of the worst three-point shooting teams in college basketball, shoots 50%, 9 for 18. They shoot incredibly well from their free throws, borderline 80%, when they're a borderline 70% free throw shooting team. On the other side, Ohio shoots much worse from three, around like 45%, despite being one of the best three-point shooting teams. And they're at home, and they shoot really poorly from free throws. So just a statistical bullshit game. I don't really know what to say. Ohio was winning by like 7 with like 3 minutes left, and they almost lost this game. So shit won. Ball State, they almost won outright, but Toledo clutched up at the end, so it was cool. Xavier, the only sweat-free win of the day. They were pretty dominant all game. They imploded a bit at the end, but they had such a big lead, it didn't really matter. Air Force, pretty safe. Looked a little sketchy for a little bit, but they locked back in, almost won that game outright. Kansas, I really thought they would bounce back. I really did. I didn't believe that BYU's home advantage would be that good, especially since they just shoot threes, and Kansas before this game had the 5th best three-point defense in college basketball, but they looked so unmotivated. Like, the expectations for them going into the season were that they were going to be like the best team, and they are just terrible. So, bad game on my part. Virginia Tech, I don't know what to say about that game. Boston College played some of their best defense. Boston College got just shit on them the entire game. It was never close. It is what it is. 3-5. Would have been nice to at least get 4-4 in one of the other games that were a bit closer, but it is what it is. I feel like we're close to destiny. The wins are very dominant wins, and the losses are really close games, except of course the last 2. But the other 3, I think, could have went either way in the final 10 minutes. So let's get into the 7 games that I like for tomorrow. All right, heading on to game number 1, we have Loyola, Maryland, heading on the road to play Boston University. Now, again, these are not very good teams. These are both teams outside the top 300. But I do like the spot for Boston. On paper, I think they are a slightly better team in general than Loyola, Maryland. I have them as, just inside the top 300, while Maryland is just outside the top 300. So about like 20 to 30 rankings between them. And these two teams played already earlier in the year, where Loyola Maryland actually won by 2 points on their home court. Now Boston, they're a team that played much, much better at home, so we're getting them in their home spot where they're borderline top 200 team. Loyola MD also plays better on the road, but I typically will, much rather play Boston here with the top 10 home advantage in college basketball. Number 1 in the conference, they play so much better at home. Now we're getting them in a revenge spot. I think this is a short line, but I do think we're getting them in a fantastic spot. Plus, Loyola is going to have to travel in this game. It's a 4-day rest, so they probably went back home. They didn't stay in a hotel for 3 days, so it's another travel spot. They don't have the money in those kind of schools to stick around on a road trip for that long. They're traveling pretty far, 300 miles. Last time they've had to travel that far, they lost all 4 games. Meanwhile, Boston University has won their last 4 games at home, and against some decent teams, especially like their win over Colgate by 2. So I think Boston University crushes this Loyola team in this revenge spot. All right, heading on to game number 2, we have Furman head on the road to play Samford. Now I'm going to start putting a lock on my favorite game of the day. I know there's a lot of people typically only like to bet like one game, or not, like if they're watching like 20 different videos and following a bunch of different people. This will be the game that, in theory, is my most confident. So it's the game that I'll be betting the most money on. Now, Samford, Furman, this is a Furman team who's due for a shit ton of regression. All year they've been slowly picking away at it. I think this is a team that is very, a good time to fade them. Samford is also due for regression, but not nearly as much as Furman is. And this is just in my opinion, a significantly better Samford team than Furman. If you look at their stats, Samford is a borderline top 100 defense and a definite top 100 offense. And Furman is barely a top 200 offensive defense. So it's almost a 100 ranking points between the two, on both sides of the court. And now we're getting Samford at home in a revenge spot where Furman barely beat them. I think Samford is going to be highly motivated for this game. The next game is against a really bad team, so they've only been planning for this game, especially in the revenge spot. They're basically the two teams closest in schedule. On paper, this is a Samford team that shoots a lot of threes, and they're going to have a really favorable matchup here against a Furman team that doesn't defend the three or mid-range well at all. They're going to find a ton of success on steals. Samford is the number 2 team in college basketball in getting points off steals, and Furman is just barely inside the top 300. So they're going to give up a ton of steals. They're going to play really sloppy on the road. Samford's going to dominate the boards. And on the other side of the court, Furman is they're not good offensively. They don't do anything well. They might get some free throws, but they don't shoot the free throws well. They're going to shoot up a bunch of threes. In terms of what Samford can defend, they're actually almost a top 100 3-point defense, so that's going to be a bit of a struggle for them, especially be on the road. I just don't see a world where this game should be close, so I really think Samford wins this game by double digits. I'm probably going to put a full unit on this one. All right, this is probably my most disgusting game of the day that I'll be betting. I think the St. John's side is going to be extremely public. I might even wait to bet this game because I just think everyone and their mother is going to be on St. John's because they've just been such a good team. But there's just one thing that's true about the St. John's team. They very rarely blow teams out. And getting 13 points with the home team seems like a lot of value to me. If you look at most of St. John's most recent games, they beat Providence by 2, Marquette by 6, Connecticut by 6, Villanova by 2. They lost by 2. Creighton they beat by 6. Georgetown they beat by 5. Villanova they beat by 12. Xavier by 10. Butler by 8. They lost to Creighton by 1. Again, Bryant, sometimes they do blow out, but mostly against really bad teams. I don't think DePaul's that good of a team by any means. But we're getting St. John's off a really massive win over Creighton. This was like a weird sandwich spot where they were on the road for 2 games, went home, now they're heading back on the road. This is a DePaul team that's going to have been home for a few days, well rested, after losing 2 games on the road against some really good teams. And they kept it pretty close in those games. They kept it within 10 against Marquette, against 10 against Villanova. They kept it within 11 with Connecticut. I think those are all teams that are arguably in the same stratosphere as St. John's is. And DePaul, on paper, I've had a lot of bad luck betting them, but they're a really good home team. They have the 20th best home advantage in college basketball, number 1 in the conference. And the St. John's team, they're not that great offensively. They're obviously a very elite defensive team, but they definitely play down to their competition sometimes. I don't know. I think DePaul has a chance to stick around here. Like, if you look at this, the offensive stats, obviously St. John's is more favored everywhere, and especially defensively. But this is a DePaul team that, they can stick around. Obviously they've only won a few home games against really bad teams this year. They got shit on by Creighton by 22 at home. They kept it really close against Marquette twice. Close against Xavier. Pretty close against UConn. I don't know. I think this is just a bit of a letdown spot for St. John's heading on the road after a really big win against Creighton. DePaul heading back home after 2 losses on the road. I think they know their season's over, so I think they're gonna try their best here to lock in. Model-wise, I only have St. John's winning this game by 11, so obviously there's the potential that Depaul just gets completely quiet. They can't shoot. And St. John's just completely dominates and wins this game by 40. But I'm going to rock with the model here. I think Depaul can keep this game within the spread. So give me Depaul plus 13. All right, game at number 4. We have Oral Roberts on the road versus Denver. Now, on paper, these are two atrocious teams. But I do think Oral Roberts is the slightly better team in general. And these two teams already played when at Oral Roberts' home court. And Denver actually won that matchup by 2. And this is a Denver team that's actually played really, really bad at home. Now we're getting Oral Roberts on the third game of this road trip, where they're coming off some rough losses, but they did play honestly really good in those games. They kept it really close against South Dakota. They beat UMKC. They lost to North Dakota, but they kept it pretty close against North Dakota State. Like, they've been playing good teams pretty close. Now this Denver team, they're going to be heading home after a road loss, but I don't know. I kind of really like this spot for Oral Roberts. The fact that it's going to be a revenge spot for them, they're getting 4 points in a position where Denver plays worse. And they only lost last game by 2, where Denver shot uncharacteristically well. Yeah, I don't know. I really like Oral Roberts in the spot. There's no real rhyme or reason. I think both teams are terrible on both sides of the ball. But I only have this modeled as a 2-point win for Denver. We're getting them at plus 4. Oral Roberts has played a harder schedule. Denver, fouls a lot, and Oral Roberts is going to get to the free throw line a ton. They're one of the best teams, especially in the conference, in getting to the line. And this Denver team, again, they foul a ton. They're not a very deep team, so if some of their better players get in foul trouble, I think that's going to give Oral Roberts just so many free points here, where Denver is not even a top 300 offense. The only thing that they shoot decently well is the mid-range. And Oral Roberts is actually a pretty good three-point deep defender, so I don't know. I think Oral Roberts, just from free throws alone, is going to get enough power here to keep this game close, especially with a Denver team that plays bad in front of their home crowd. So give me Oral Roberts here, plus 4, and on the money line. All right, heading on to game number 5. We've got New Mexico heading on the road to play Boise. Now, on paper, I do think New Mexico is the more talented squad. And these two teams already played earlier this year, and New Mexico won that game by 19. But I genuinely do believe the Pit is one of the hardest places to play in college basketball, if not the hardest place. Maybe behind the Jungle in Auburn, but I think that game being so one-sided, and the fact that New Mexico's been playing incredibly well, and we're still getting Boise State as a favorite, I think that line is extremely telling that the books think Boise State is going to win this game. New Mexico, they won 15 of the last 16 games, including a 19-point win over Boise State. But this is a really tough place to play. Boise State has the number 2 home advantage in college basketball. They get a significant bump at home. On the other side, New Mexico, yes, they've been a pretty good road team this year, the best in the conference. And they've been playing incredibly well, genuinely. But this is a Boise team that really struggles against top 25 teams, but they're pretty good against these borderline top 25 teams like New Mexico is. We're getting them off an incredibly pathetic loss where they only put up 47 points against San Diego State. I think their coach is going to really have been hard on them in the 3-4 days they've had off before this home game. New Mexico, they're coming off a big high, beating Utah State at home. But again, this New Mexico team, they really have not been that impressive to me. These are 2 home games. They only won by 3 and 4 points. On the road, they've kept it pretty close against some significantly worse teams. I think Boise shot uncharacteristically bad in that game that they lost to New Mexico. They're going to be locked in here in this revenge spot. Plus, New Mexico has two questionable players. 2 of their top 5 scorers, Noland and Amsil, are still going to be dealing with injuries. Amsil did not play last game. He's a pretty solid player, a good rebounder. Obviously, they still have Donovan Dent, but I think Boise has some of the best isolation defenders that will be able to handle him. But yeah, them losing potentially two of their top players. They're not a very deep team. It's very isolated to these top three players. And if these bench players can't play significant minutes, I do think we're going to get New Mexico a bit slow here on the road against, especially in an arena that is going to be extremely hard for them to play in. So, yeah, I'm looking at this game. I think the line is the biggest telling point here that we're getting Boise in a good spot at home. Offensively, New Mexico is a very good defensive team that's going to stop Boise State pretty much everywhere they want to play. But I think Boise State's going to find some success in the paint. They're going to get a bunch of free throws. On the other side of the ball, New Mexico, they're going to they kind of rely on second chance opportunities and points off steals. These are two things that Boise State does really well. They're 13th in limiting points off steals, and they're 10th in their own boards. So I think New Mexico, a team that doesn't actually shoot the ball very well, who kind of relies on getting those boards and offensive, defensive stats, I think they're going to struggle here. I think Boise's offense is just good enough here to be able to find some success, and Boise State is really good where it counts. So give me Boise State at home on -2.5. All right, two other games that I'm likely going to bet. I haven't really decided yet because I do think the line might move. I really like SMU here. I really don't fully believe in this Notre Dame team yet. They've been playing better as of lately, but if you look at the advanced stats, this SMU team is really, really good. And they're objectively better in almost every single stat. Notre Dame has been playing worse at home. They fall outside the top 100 when they're playing at home. Meanwhile, SMU is borderline top 25 when they play on the road. If you look at their last 5 rating, SMU has been a borderline top 25 team. And Notre Dame's been way outside, almost outside the top 150. I just think this is a tough spot here to back Notre Dame. Yes, they're coming off a really bad road loss to Louisville, but they really haven't looked good. The only teams they beat are Virginia, who's obviously a very mediocre team. They beat Georgia Tech. I'm not even sure if they're a top 100 team. They lost to Miami. You know how bad you have to be to lose to Miami and Florida State, two teams that have been terrible this year. They lost to Virginia Tech. They beat Boston College barely on the road, and then they got crushed by Louisville. They have no impressive wins this year, in my opinion. Every team that they probably should have beat, I think their only slightly impressive win is against Syracuse. But it's an SMU team that just beat Pittsburgh by 20. They're coming off a pretty shitty loss to Wake Forest at home. They beat Stanford. They crushed California. They beat NC State. They completely dominated Miami, as you should, by 45 points on the road. A team that Notre Dame just lost to on the road. I don't know. I can't get there with Notre Dame. I think SMU is the better team on both sides of the ball, and they're going to run the floor coming off a loss. Give me SMU here. This is an official bet as well. I think this line is a little sketch because I think SMU is just that much better of a team. But I can't back Notre Dame in this spot. I think SMU wins this game by 10. In game number 2, we have UM-KC. This is a strictly, not even a model game. This is what I would consider just a spot game. We're in Kansas City at home where they play. They're one of the best home teams in college basketball. And we're getting them in a spot where they're due for a ton of regression, which typically is at home after a loss. It's where teams find the most improvement in their game. These two teams already played where Omaha completely crushed UMKC. UMKC has been in 2 positions this year where they've been in revenge spots already, and they've covered in both of those games. I think they are a team that does play with a lot of revenge. I think the arena's going to be bumping, even though this team's not good. They still get a showing. Nebraska Omaha is the better team. That's also coming off 2 road losses. But this is going to be their 3rd game of the road trip. Kansas City. It's going to be going back home after a close game against South Dakota. They got crushed by Omaha by 19 points in their last game. I think this is a UMKC just positional spot here, where Omaha's lost their last 4 games on the road when having to travel over 100 miles. So give me UMKC money line as my 7th bet. A few other games that I'm looking at, I might end up betting near the tip-off. It's going to be Vanderbilt. I probably won't actually touch this game. Kentucky's missing going to be missing 2 of their best players, and Vanderbilt beat them already. But it's really hard to play at home, like in Kentucky's home court, even with their bench players playing more minutes. I think Vanderbilt has just been such a worse team on the road that this might end up just being a one-sided game. I could see Kentucky easily putting up 90 points this game. I don't know if Vanderbilt can put up 85 to cover, so we'll see. Longwood, I just think Gardner-Webb is a really bad team. I think Longwood probably crushes them at home. North Carolina, this line is just too sus for me to touch. North Carolina has been so bad, and NC State's kind of been playing pretty well. We're getting double digits for a road dog against a team that has been playing mediocrely. It feels like a trap line to me. I think they're begging us to take NC State, and North Carolina's going to win this game by 20 points. So probably not going to touch it. Maybe I'll look for a live line if North Carolina gets way too hot early, or if NC State gets hot, I can get UNC at a good price, but probably won't touch that game. Murray State, I have Murray State winning this game by like 8 or 9, but they're only 1.5 point home favorites. Not touching that game. Any game where I'm over 5 off the spread, I typically just assume there's something that behind the scenes I'm missing. Not touching that game. I like Providence. Georgetown, rumor is they're going to be missing their star player. Can't confirm or deny whether or not that's accurate yet, but someone in a Discord that I talked to has mentioned that, so we'll see if I end up betting that. I figured I probably will bet it and maybe just take a cash out option, but even if that star player plays, I think Providence can keep this game close. They're a really scrappy team, so you could probably mark that as a bet. I think I'm going to bet it. Don't like that game. Don't like that game. UIC versus Drake. I think UIC should keep this game close, but they're such an inconsistent team. I'm just not going to. I don't trust them on the road. When they can get hot from 3, they can keep any game close, but yeah, they just beat Drake, and now they're double-digit dogs. I think this is a get-right spot for Drake, who's been playing much, much better recently than they did earlier in the year. Illinois State versus Bradley. I added Illinois State to my ban list. I'm not touching this game, but statistically, they're in a good spot here at home. St. Thomas, I might bet this game. I have them modeled at 7.5 points. I think they crushed South Dakota, but they are a road favorite, and they shoot a lot of threes, so I'm not really that in love with that spot. And then Arkansas is the last game that I'm thinking about betting. I think Auburn is obviously an elite team, but Arkansas keeps games close. They obviously have a ton of talent here. And Auburn has, they either dominate teams or they keep it way too close for comfort. And I think after their last massive win, this is a spot where they typically regress a little bit. If you look at their most recent games, they're coming off a 9-point win over Alabama, 12-point win over Vanderbilt. They lost to Florida. But it's rare that they blow out teams in more than 2 games in a row. So I wouldn't say 9 points is a blowout, but in terms of the quality of competition, I would say that's a borderline of blowout against such a good team like Alabama. And yeah, I think that's it. I might take Utah State against San Jose State, especially since San Jose State is still going to be missing some of their best players. I think Utah State is just way too talented to sleep on at home here. So obviously you can check the pinned comment, check Discord. I say until a bet is on my what I'm betting tab in Discord, it's not official. I typically type it in there right when I bet it on Bet365 or whichever app I'm using. So if you see it on the spreadsheet, whatever, nothing is actually locked in until it's on the Discord. That's just how I keep track of what I'm betting. So if you have any questions on any other games, please let me know. But I do feel good about this slate after a couple rough days. So hopefully today is going to be a great bounce back day. See you guys tomorrow.